Sarva Vedanta Siddhanta Sara Sangraha. Sarva Vedanta Siddhanta Sara Sangraha. There is a text that has been circulating in the world of Advaita Vedanta for many centuries, attributed by tradition to the great philosopher Shankara, who is said to have lived in the 8th century of the Common Era, though scholars continue to debate both the dates and the authorship. Whether the pen was held by Shankara himself or by a later thinker working in his tradition, the Sarva Vedanta Siddhanta Sara Sangraha, which translates roughly as the complete compendium of all Vedantic conclusions, stands as one of the most ambitious attempts in the entire tradition to gather every thread of the teaching into a single sustained statement. It does not argue for one school over another. It maps the whole territory, from the first stirring of the seeker's desire all the way to the final dissolution of the one who was seeking. The verses move through stages: the preparation of the student, the nature of reality, the identity of the individual soul with the ground of all being, and the life of one who has seen through the dream and yet continues to walk in the world. What follows is that text, read from its beginning to its close. Verse 1. I bow to Govinda, the true teacher. His form is awareness and joy. Simply by bowing to him, the individual soul wakes up to the unbroken bliss. Verses 2 and 3. I take refuge in the unbroken. It is the ground of all worlds. It is beyond the reach of words and the grasp of the mind. I bow to the elephant-headed Lord, the remover of obstacles, and to the Master who plays in the garden of the Atman, the invariant self. Verses 4 through 7. Before we build the palace of wisdom, we must check the foundation. Who is the warrior fit for this task? He is the one who is clever, focused, and brave. He has studied the maps. He has scrubbed his heart clean. He does not ask why out of curiosity. He asks how out of a desperate need to survive. Verses 10 and 11. What is the prize? The realization that the individual and the total are one. This is the escape. Without this prize in sight, not even a fool would take a single step into the dark. Verses 13 through 15. The ancient sages say there are 4 tools. If you have them, you will succeed. If you lack them, you will drown. The first is discrimination, the power to tell the gold from the dust. The second is dispassion, the shield that turns away the world's sweets. The third is the 6 jewels, the inner calm that steadies the hand. The fourth is the hunger, the scream of the soul for its own home. Verses 16 through 18. Brahman is the only reality. Everything else is a passing cloud. This certainty is discrimination. Just as the clay is the only real thing in the pot, and the gold is the only real thing in the ring, Brahman is the only real thing in the universe. To see the isness and ignore the name is to hold the sword. Verses 22 through 24. What is dispassion? It is looking at the pleasures of earth and the gardens of the gods and seeing them as crow's dung. It is a repulsion so deep that it cannot be shaken. How is this repulsion born? By looking, truly looking, at the horror of the world. Verse 27. Consider the womb, a dark, cramped prison of filth, urine, and bile. You were scorched by the mother's internal fire. You were bitten by microbes. Think of this agony. Who would choose to return to such a cell? Verses 28 and 29. Consider the infant, lying in its own waste, unable to speak, unable to move, struck by unseen spirits and sicknesses, a state of utter helplessness and ignorance. Is this joy? Verses 30 and 31. Consider the young man, drunk on pride, blinded by lust, chasing a woman like a moth chasing a flame. He insults the wise and wastes his life in a fever of the senses. Verses 31 and 32. Consider the old man, the body breaks, the mind decays, people look at him with pity or disgust, his own children ignore him, he is a ruin of a house, waiting for the wind to blow him over. Verses 33 and 34. Consider the moment of the great departure. The throat rattles, the nerves scream, the messengers of death wait at the door, then comes the river of fire and the long trek through the dark. Verses 39 and 40. Only a fool looks at this cycle and calls it happiness. The wise man sees the decay in the flower and the rot in the fruit. He sees the prison of the home and the chains of family. He looks at the beautiful face and sees a bag of bone and bile. He turns his back on the theatre of shadows. Verse 47. Desire for the home is a chain on the feet. Desire for the lover is a noose around the neck. Desire for gold is a lightning bolt hitting the head. The warrior breaks these chains. He draws his sword. He prepares to meet the master. Verse 48. Look at the people of the world. They are bound by 100 ropes called hope. They cannot even stand up, let alone walk. They are guarded by the 3 wardens, desire, anger, and pride. They are locked in the prison of the world, and the key is lost in the dark. Verses 51 and 52. Consider the moth. It sees the brilliance of the flame and thinks it is a palace of gold. It flies into the fire and is consumed. So too, the man without sight sees the beauty of the body, a bag of bone, meat, and waste, and throws his life into it. He thinks he is embracing a lover. He is embracing a corpse. Verse 62. How do you defeat desire? Kill the imagination. Desire is a seed. Imagination is the water. If you stop painting beautiful pictures of objects in your mind, the seed of desire will wither in the dry soil of the heart. Verses 70 and 71. Wealth is a snake in the house. It brings the fear of the king, the fear of the thief, and the fear of the relative. It does not bring freedom. It only brings a heavier set of chains. It is the mother of greed, and greed is the death of discrimination. Verses 76 through 78. Money breeds pride. Pride breeds forgetfulness. Forgetfulness breeds the death of the intellect. The rich man is like a man with a cataract. He walks the wrong path because he cannot see the pits in front of him. For such a man, poverty is the only medicine. It is the eye salve that clears the vision. Verses 95 through 97. What is tranquility? It is the state where the mind stays fixed on the goal like a steady flame. It is the supreme peace. It is the refusal to let the mind ripple when the wind of the world blows. It is not a quieting of the mind. It is the mind dissolving into the silence of the One. Verse 115. Do not be a fool. True balance is the absorption of the mind in Brahman. If your mind is full of noise, it does not matter if your spine is as straight as a dry tree. A dry tree is rigid, but it is dead. The sage is flexible on the outside, but unmoving on the inside. Verses 128 through 130. Consider the senses. They are like wild horses. If the mind does not hold the reins, they will run toward the world like the wind runs toward a fire. They will consume you. Verses 131 through 133. Restraint is the act of pulling the reins. When you shut the gates of the senses, the mind has nowhere to go. It begins to look inward. It loses its restless heat and takes on the cool nature of the self. The taming of the senses is the only doorway to the palace of peace. Verses 137 and 138. What is endurance? It is the ability to bear the arrows of fate without weeping. Sickness comes, poverty comes, insult comes. The warrior does not try to hide. He wears endurance as his armor. It is a shield that cannot be broken by any weapon of the world. Verse 139. Those who lack this armor fall like leaves in a storm. They are broken by the first cold wind, but the one who endures wins the kingdom. He treats the pain of the body as a story told about someone else. Verses 151 through 153. What is true renunciation? It is the informed abandonment of all action. The seeker looks at his hands and asks, can these hands build a palace that never crumbles? He realizes that every result of action is temporary. Therefore, if he seeks the eternal, he must stop relying on the doing. Verses 154 and 155. Action can only produce four kinds of fruit. It can create something new like a pot. It can reach something distant like a city. It can purify something dirty like a mirror. It can change something into another like milk into curd. But Brahman is none of these. It is not created, for it has always been. It is not distant, for it is your own heart. It is not dirty, for it is forever pure. It does not change, for it is the immutable. Therefore, no amount of doing can ever produce the self. Verses 186 and 187. Knowledge and action are like light and darkness. They cannot walk together. Even a mountain of dry straw cannot stop the sun from rising. So too, a billion ritual actions cannot produce the spark of truth. Action belongs to the ego. Knowledge belongs to the self. Verse 210. What is faith? It is the absolute certainty that the words of the master and the map are true. It is the anchor in the storm. Without faith, the warrior wanders in circles, always doubting his own feet. Verses 218 through 220. What is focus? It is the single eye. Just as an archer sees only the target and forgets the bow, the string, and the wind, the seeker locks his mind on the absolute. If the mind slips even an inch, the arrow of life misses the mark. Verse 229. What is the hunger? It is the state of a man whose house is on fire. He does not stop to save his furniture. He does not care about his clothes. He only wants out. This out is the birth of the seeker. Verses 235 through 240. A human life is a rare and fragile thing. To have a human body, a sharp mind, and the hunger to be free is a triple miracle. To waste it on the pleasures of a dog or a pig is a crime against your own soul. While the body is still healthy, while the mind is still clear, run. Verse 251. Armed with these strengths, the student approaches the master. He carries the firewood of humility in his hands. He finds the master, the ocean of mercy, the one who is still and silent like a deep well. Verses 258 through 264. The student falls at the master's feet. The verses speak plainly. He is being dragged through the ocean of birth and death. The waves of his own past actions are pulling him under. The crocodiles of desire are biting his limbs. The fire of grief is burning his heart. He has no other refuge. He asks to be saved from this death. Verse 265. The master speaks in reply. His words are cool and measured. He addresses the student directly as teacher to student. He tells him, "Stop your grief. Listen carefully. There is no death to fear. You are dreaming of a tiger and you are shaking in your sleep. I am here to wake you up." Verse 266. The ocean you fear is a mirage. The crocodiles are made of your own thoughts. You are the infinite. You are the joy. The journey, as you have understood it, is over. Now the real inquiry begins. Verse 297. What is superimposition? It is the act of seeing something where it is not. It is seeing a snake on a piece of rope. The rope is the reality. The snake is the ghost born of the dark. Verses 298 through 301. Brahman is the rope, truth, knowledge, and the infinite. The universe is the snake. Is the snake real? No, because when the light comes, it vanishes. Is the snake unreal? No, because as long as you are in the dark, you shake with real fear. This indescribable mistake is the cause of all your wandering. Verses 310 through 312. The shadow called Maya is the magic of the Lord. When consciousness reflects in the pure strand of harmony, he is called the Lord. He is the all-knower. He is the weaver of the stars. He is the king who controls the dream. Verses 318 through 321. When consciousness reflects in the muddy strands of energy and inertia, he is called the soul, the jiva. He is the dreamer who thinks he is the dream. He is the one who feels small, limited, and afraid. Verses 334 through 337. How did the ghosts become solid? Creation began with a subtle descent, like a waterfall. From the shadow came space. From space came wind. From wind came fire. From fire came water. From water came earth. These were the pure elements, ghostly, subtle, and unmixed. Verses 338 through 341. From these pure elements, the subtle body was woven. It is the instrument of the soul, made of 17 parts, the 5 gates of knowing, which are the ears, the eyes, and so on, the 5 tools of action, which are the hands, the feet, and so on, the 5 winds of life, the mind that doubts, and the intellect that knows. Verses 342 through 346. And within this subtle instrument, the text maps 5 sheaths, 5 layers wrapped around the self like the skins of an onion. This is the panchakosha teaching that the ancient Taittiriya Upanishad sets out, and which the text here draws on directly. The outermost sheath is the food body, the dense layer of flesh that is born from food, lives on food, and dissolves back into the earth as food. Inside it is the vital sheath, the layer of breath and energy that animates the food body the way wind fills a sail. Inside that is the mental sheath, the layer of impression and desire and doubt. Inside that is the sheath of intellect and discernment, the layer that decides and knows and claims credit for knowing. And inside that, the most subtle of all, is the sheath of bliss, the layer that is experienced in deep sleep, in dreamless rest, where there is no object and no subject, only an undifferentiated ease. These 5 are the coverings. The self is what remains when all 5 are removed, the one who wears them and is not any of them. Verses 350 through 352. This is the mask of the agent. It says, I am the doer, I am the sufferer. It travels from life to life, carrying the heavy bag of its own memories. It is the phantom self that dreams while the body sleeps. Verses 409 through 411. The ghosts were too thin to build a world. To make the mountains and the flesh, they had to be broken. The Creator split each element in 2. He kept one half pure and broke the other half into 4 parts. He mixed the pieces until every element contained a piece of every other. This is the great mixing. Verses 412 through 416. Now the world became heavy, the space became sound, the wind became touch, the fire became sight, the water became taste, the earth became smell, the trap was set, the stage was solid. Verses 434 through 436. On this solid stage, the inhabitants appeared in 4 ways. Those born from wombs, such as humans and mammals, those born from eggs, such as birds and serpents, those born from sweat, such as insects and lice, and those born from the earth, such as trees and plants. Verses 443 through 445. Each of these is a cage of food. It is born of food, it lives on food, and it dies into food. It is a temporary shell for the king who has forgotten his name. Verse 456. Understand this, warrior. From the solid earth to the subtle mind, everything you can see, hear, or think is not the self. It is the ghost. It is the shadow. Your work is to find the one who watches the shadow without being part of it. Verses 457 and 458. What is the self, the Atman? It is the seer of the mind and its changing moods. It is eternal, unmoving, and pure awareness. It is self-luminous. It does not need a lamp to be seen because it is the light. It is the unbroken joy, the witness of the show, and it is untouched by the three strands of nature. Verses 459 and 460. The body changes in 6 ways. It is born, it exists, it grows, it ripens, it decays, and it dies. But the self has no birth and no end. It is the ancient one. Just as the space inside a house is not destroyed when the walls are knocked down, the self is not slain when the body is slain. Verses 510 and 511. Can doing good things make you free? No. The misidentification called avidya is only destroyed by knowledge, never by action. Action and ignorance are friends. They work together. Action is born from the thought, I am the doer. Doing more only makes the I feel more solid. You cannot wash away mud with more mud. Verses 516 and 517. Knowledge and ignorance are like light and darkness. They cannot stand in the same room. Only the sun of wisdom can burn away the fog of the me. Therefore, sharpen your mind. The work is not in the hands, it is in the seeing. Verses 521 and 522. The world is full of scholars who are lost in the woods. They build tall towers of words to explain the soul, but their foundations are sand. The master must chop them down. Verses 522 through 525. The first fool says, my son is myself. When he thrives, I thrive. When he dies, I am destroyed. But this is mere attachment. You love your son because he reflects you. If the house is on fire, you leave the sun and run to save your own life. The sun is an object. The self is the subject. Verses 534 and 535. The second fool says, this body is the self. I am these limbs and this skin, but the body is a bag of meat. It is unconscious matter. It is moved by the senses like a puppet. You say this is my body, just as you say this is my house. You are the owner, not the property. Verse 539. The third fool says, the senses are the self. I am the eye that sees and the ear that hears. But the senses are merely windows. When you are in deep sleep, the eyes do not see, yet you still exist. The senses are tools like a hammer. You are the carpenter. Verse 545. The fourth fool says, the breath is the self. I am the energy that moves the lungs. But breath is just wind moving in and out like a blacksmith's bellows. It has no knowledge. It does not know I am. It is a machine of air. Verses 550 and 551. The fifth fool says, the mind is the self. I am my thoughts and my doubts. But the mind is a river of changing ripples. It is often confused and frequently absent, as in sleep. You are the one who watches the mind get confused. Verse 557. The sixth fool says, the intellect is the self. I am the one who decides and acts, but the intellect is just a mask. It is a light borrowed from the sun. It is a modification of nature. It is the agent who claims credit, but it disappears in deep sleep. Verses 574 through 576. The seventh fool says, "The void is the self. In deep sleep there is nothing, therefore I am nothing." But this is the most dangerous tower of all. If everything were a void, who would be there to say, "I slept in a void"? The one who witnesses the nothing is the self. Verses 597 and 598. The fool claims he is nothing, yet he uses his own existence to prove it. He is like a man who shouts, "I am dead." If you were dead, who would be shouting? If you were a void, who would be reporting the darkness? Verse 599. The self is the sun that lights up the nothingness. It is the one who watches the silence of sleep and the noise of the day. It has no other witness, for there is nothing higher than it. It is the knower of all, whom nothing else can know. Verses 612 and 613. The self is existence. It is the unmoving thread that runs through the beads of time. States come and go, waking rises, dreaming ripples, deep sleep settles. Childhood vanishes, youth burns out, old age decays, but the I remains. The I that stood in the cradle is the same I that stands by the grave. It has no beginning and no end. It simply is. Verse 615. The ego and its moods are like the clouds. They change shape every second. But the self is like the sky. It does not ripen. It does not wither. It is the only thing in the universe that can never say, "I am not." Verses 618 through 620. The self is awareness. It is the sun of knowledge. Consider the stone and the wood. They are dark, dead matter. They only appear when the sun shines on them. The mind and the intellect are the same. They are blind tools. They only appear conscious because the self is shining through them. Verses 621 and 622. The sun does not need a lamp to see itself. Awareness does not need a thought to know itself. It is self-luminous. It reveals the world, it reveals the ego, and it reveals the silence of sleep. Nothing can hide from it, yet nothing can touch it. Verses 623 through 625. The self is bliss. How do we know? Because every creature loves itself above all else. Ask the dying man. He will give up his gold, his house, and his name just to live for one more hour. Why? Because the self is the source of all value. The world is not loved for the sake of the world. It is loved for the sake of the I. Verses 629 through 631. A man loves his child, his spouse, and his wealth, but he loves them only as long as they bring joy to him. If the child becomes a monster or the gold becomes a burden, the love dries up. But the love for the self never dries up. The self is the supreme beloved, the center of the circle. Everything else is just the circumference. Verses 635 through 637. The fool looks for joy in the world. He is like a beggar looking for gold in a pile of ash. The world is naturally a place of sorrow, decay, and thirst. Then where does the pleasure come from? Verses 670 through 672. Pleasure is a stolen reflection. When you get what you want, the mind becomes still for a split second. In that stillness, the bliss of the self reflects in the mind. The fool thinks the object made him happy. The wise man knows he was just tasting a drop of his own infinite ocean. He stops chasing the drop and turns back to the sea. Verses 682 through 686. Look at the pot. Is it real? If you take away the clay, where is the pot? The pot is just a name and a shape we give to the clay. Look at the earring. Is it real? If you take away the gold, where is the earring? The earring is just a name and a shape we give to the gold. Verses 689 through 692. So it is with the universe. The mountains, the stars, the gods, and the men, they are all just names and shapes. The substance of them all is Brahman. There is no other. There is no two. When the dream breaks, only the dreamer remains. To see the gold and ignore the ring is the end of fear. Verses 703 through 705. Now we come to the center of the map. The Vedas whisper the secret code, that thou art. Until this code is cracked, the soul remains a wanderer. Once it is understood, the wandering ends forever. But on the surface, the sentence looks like a lie. Verses 709 through 712. The Master says, every word has two meanings, the literal and the implied. To find the truth, you must throw away the literal and seize the implied. The literal meaning of that is the Lord who creates the universe. The literal meaning of thou is the ego soul that suffers. These two can never be one. They are as different as fire and ice. Verses 721 through 723. Look at the words literally. That is the Lord, all-knowing, all-powerful, the master of the stars. Thou is the seeker, confused, limited, and bound by time. How can the firefly be the sun? How can the king be the beggar? If you take the words at face value, the equation is madness. Verses 753 through 756. To solve the equation, we use the logic of the actor. Imagine you saw a man years ago. He was a rich merchant. Today you see him again. He is a poor monk. You point at the monk and say, this is that same man. To make this statement true, you must perform a surgery. You ignore the merchant and the monk, the roles. You ignore the wealth and the poverty, the conditions. You ignore the past and the present, the time. You look only at the person underneath the clothes. Verses 757 through 760. So too with the great equation. Strip the Lord, remove the total power, remove the creation of worlds, remove the cloak of the universal shadow. What is left? Pure awareness. Strip yourself, remove the small body, remove the confused mind, remove the cloak of the individual ignorance. What is left? Pure awareness. The equation revealed, awareness equals awareness. The light in the heart of God and the light in the heart of man are the same light. The difference was never in the light. It was only in the glass through which it shone. Verse 776. When the costumes are dropped, the truth strikes like an arrow. I am not the body that suffers. I am the one who gives life to the body. I am the light that was there before the suns were born. Verses 781 and 782. You were always the infinite. The humanity, the limitation, and the fear were just stories you told yourself in your sleep. Why are you afraid? Can the ocean be afraid of a wave? Can the space be afraid of the wind? You are the all. There is no other to harm you. Verse 791. Rest in this thought. Let the I am Brahman thought flow in your mind like a river of oil, thick, silent, and unbroken. Let it wash away the old debts and the old habits. Stand as the supreme. Verses 795 through 797. Knowing is not enough. The mind is a choppy sea, and a reflection in choppy water is broken. To see the truth, you must generate the unbroken thought. It is the realization, I am the infinite, the bliss, the one. This thought must be held until it becomes the only thought. Like a river of oil pouring into a jar, it must be thick, silent, and without a single gap. Verses 802 through 804. When this unbroken thought rises, it destroys the darkness of the me. It is like the sun entering a dark room. The darkness does not leave. It simply ceases to be. In that light, the ego soul is seen for what it is, a shadow on the wall, a phantom that never had a heart. Verses 819 through 821. There are two depths to the ocean of silence. The first is the vision with form. The mind sees Brahman, but it still feels like a mind. It is like looking at a clay elephant. You see the elephant, which is the world, but you know it is clay, which is Brahman. The eye is still there, watching the light. The second is the vision without form. The observer and the observed melt into one. It is like salt thrown into the sea. The salt does not see the water. It becomes the water. The boundaries vanish. The I is drowned in the all. Verses 835 through 837. To reach the deep water, you must drop the heavy stones of identity. Say to yourself in the silence, I am not the body of meat. I am not the breath that moves. I am not the mind that wavers. I am the witness of them all. Verses 837 through 840. I am not the child, I am not the youth, I am not the old man, I am not the doer, I am not the sufferer, I am not the one who knows, I am not the seeker, I am not the free. I am the pure awareness that watches these stories rise and fall. Verse 842. Like space, I am inside everything and outside everything. I am the stainless, the formless, the unmoving. I am the nectar of being. Verses 909 through 911. To keep the mind steady, the text prescribes the eight-limbed discipline drawn from the yoga tradition. These are not purely interior maneuvers of cognition alone. They have an outer as well as an inner face. The first is restraint of conduct, the great vows of non-harming, truthfulness, non-stealing, and the rest, which clear the ground of vice. The second is observance of discipline, the positive habits of purity, contentment, study, and surrender to the Lord, which cultivate the ground for growth. The third is posture, the settling of the body into a condition of steadiness and ease so that it does not disturb the mind. The fourth is the regulation of breath, which steadies the vital force and quiets the ripples of the nervous instrument. The fifth is withdrawal of the senses from their objects, the inward turning of the attention. The sixth is concentration, the fixing of the mind on a single point. The seventh is meditation, the sustained and unbroken flow of attention toward that point. And the eighth is absorption, the falling away of the boundary between the one who meditates and the object of meditation. Each rung prepares the one above it. Together, They carry the seeker from the noise of the world to the silence of the self. Verses 922 and 923. As you sit in the silence, 4 thieves will come to steal your peace. The first is sleep, where the mind falls into the dark void to avoid the light. The second is restlessness, where the mind jumps to the world's toys. The third is the poison of memory, where old habits and traumas rise up like ghosts. The fourth is the honey trap, where the mind gets addicted to the pleasure of meditation and stops moving toward the truth. Acknowledge the thieves, but do not invite them in. Push past the pleasure. Push past the sleep. Stand as the Brahman. Verses 924 through 927. After the long discipline of practice, the student's mind grew like a lake that had become the sky. He bowed to the master and spoke the verse of arrival, "I bow to you, master of bliss. By your teaching alone, the two has vanished. I am the unbroken one. Where should I go? What should I take? What should I leave? I have filled the entire universe like the waters of the great flood." Verses 930 and 931. By your grace, I am the ancient one. I am the one who does nothing, yet everything is done through me. I am the mass of joy. I am the stainless. The fever of 1,000 lives has been cooled by the moonlight of your words. I am home. Verses 938 through 940. The Master spoke one last time, giving final instruction on the condition of the one who has arrived at knowledge. Listen, my son. Hear what remains to be understood about the state of the liberated one and about the stages of inner ripening that the seeker passes through on the way. Verse 941. The first stage is the longing for liberation. The seeker wakes to his condition. He sees that he is bound and he wants to be free. He turns his face away from the world's distractions and looks toward the teaching. Verse 942. The second is inquiry, the careful and sustained investigation of the self by means of the scriptures and the Master's guidance. The seeker asks, "What am I?" He does not stop asking until he has found the answer. Verse 943. The third is the thinning of the mind's tendencies. The deep grooves of old habit begin to lose their grip. Cravings grow faint. The world's pull weakens. The seeker moves more lightly. Verse 944. The fourth is the settled clarity of wisdom. The truth has been seen, and the seeing has become stable. The world looks transparent, like a dream that is still playing but no longer deceives. Verse 945. The fifth is freedom from entanglement. The mind no longer catches on the hooks of objects. It rests in its own light without being pulled outward. Verse 947. The sixth is the non-perception of duality. Objects lose their apparent solidity and independence. There is only the one substance appearing in countless forms. The one who has reached this stage must be reminded by others to attend to the needs of the body. Verse 948. The seventh is the utter stillness of full absorption, Taittiriya. The fourth, the state that underlies and pervades the other three. The difference between the self and the absolute has dissolved completely. This is the crown of the path. Verses 966 and 967. The one who has reached the peak is the living free. Inside, he is empty like a jar in space. Outside, he is full like a jar in the ocean. He moves through the world, but the world does not touch him. Verses 969 through 971. He is awake while the world sleeps. He is asleep while the world is busy with its toys. He has no eye in his actions. He may rule or he may beg, but his heart is as cool as the moon. He sees himself in all beings and all beings in himself. Verse 979. When the arrow of destiny finally hits the ground, the body falls. But the knower does not die. Just as the wind becomes still when the air stops moving, the sage becomes the absolute. Verses 988 and 989. Consider the snake. It leaves its old skin in the dirt and does not look back. The skin is trodden on, it rots, it is blown by the wind, but the snake has a new life. So too, the sage leaves the cage of bone behind. He no longer claims it as me. Verses 992 through 995. There is only silence. No, I know you, no Lord, no world. The drop has realized it was always the ocean. The dream is over. There is only the truth, infinite, unmoving, and free.